Notice I stayed very silent.
You're afraid. Oh, I like that you did it. Instead of because we don't have Patrick today because he's out baby. You did Tom, Sarah, and Roger as the guests.
How about that?
We are the guests.
We're the host and the guest. We do it all, people. So you don't
That's
have
right.
to.
One-stop service
for $29.95 a month.
Order now.
You can peel, dice, slice, and makes margaritas. With that little sandwich thing. Make little petit fours.
I had a sardine sandwich today for lunch.
Ooh, that sounds good. I could have done that too because I bought a loaf of bread last night, which I never do because if I buy a loaf of bread, I eat the loaf of bread.
Okay.
Which I did with some brie,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a can of sardines. I could have had a sardine sandy. Now, do you make it like a tuna salad or is it more simple than that?
I have done before. This time, what I did was a little Dijon mustard, some double Gloucester, and this weird kimchi that's more like a relish than a kimchi.
What's double Gloucester?
Double Gloucester is a cheese. It's
yes,
very similar to a cheddar.
Yes,
in some respects.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that cabbage relish, the cheese, the mustard, and the sardines.
Do you heat it up or no?
No, eat it cold.
Well, I would not think to put those things on a sandwich together, but I'm going to after the show. I have got all these things. Not the same kind of cheese, but I have cheddar.
You have that kimchi?
Are they
I do.
peeled? Are they they've been filleted or are they just
the sardines? Yeah, they're peeled. Okay. They're just a tinned sardine that I get at Ralph's.
I get the skinless, boneless ones because it has way less fat, but I don't even care about that.
It's too fishy.
I don't know why I do that.
Too fishy.
I need to eat fishy things for my health, says my doc.
I just love sardines.
I love
kipper snacks.
Those too. All that stuff. Yum, yum.
Too fishy.
Well, there's that Notorious B.I.G. line where he says, "Remember when we used to eat sardines for dinner?" Meaning that's a thing that you ate when you were poor.
Right.
Right? Before you came, before you arrived. And I'm like, still do that.
Also, they're not that cheap anymore, relatively speaking. Like tuna is the cheap thing now. Sardines are actually a little more expensive. I don't know why. I mean, they're still cheap, but I'm just saying, a can of tuna is 99 cents, whereas the sardines are $2.50.
Right.
Because the tuna can be farmed, or at least yellowtails.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Yellowtail? Oh, really? The expensive yellowtail I'm eating at the sushi restaurant is just farmed fish?
It could be. I mean, the most expensive is bluefin, but bluefin is endangered.
Yeah, I don't think you're even allowed to. You can't put that on a menu in California, I don't think.
I've seen it, but I don't know if it's a different kind or maybe they farm some bluefin now. I don't know.
I think yellowfin is like one of two considered sustainable tuna.
I mean, I've seen a yellowfin, I've not caught one myself, but it's
I demand to see the fin.
It's a big fish, but bluefin is
I want to check out the fin. Leave the fin on when you serve me this, so I can.
If unfortunately they took all the big ones, so that bluefin get that size because they live a very long time, and I think it's one of the few fish that's actually warm blooded.
If you're wondering where Patrick Beja is, he called in baby. We knew this would happen at some point. Babies just need some attention.
I expected it.
Yeah.
I always forget to turn my Wi-Fi off. Okay, if it gets weird, I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. Let's make the jump. Make the jump. Make the jump. I saw you flicker, so I bet that was it. You seem fine.
No, I seem fine. Yeah, I heard a little and I was like, oh, right. It's my Wi-Fi.
So let's see. Sarah, would you do the honors of reading the...
Thought you'd never ask.
Did really? Okay.
No, I figured you would. Yes, it's fine.
All right, here we go. 3, 2.
Daily Tech News Show is powered by you. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, March 6th, 2018. From DTNS headquarters in Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merrit.
And from Studio Feline, where there's actually a feline behind me, if you look very closely, I'm Sarah Lane.
Patrick Beja is out with baby today, so he will need your support on Twitter, is what I'm guessing. No, things are fine. It's baby time. Roger, you know baby time.
Oh, yeah. I remember I used to do the show with a baby on my shoulder.
You sure did. Those were good times. I miss those days. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, I feel like, not that it's any more comforting when you don't sleep for several weeks at a time, but everyone seems to have the same problem with newborns. It's not like you're doing anything wrong.
No, it's just the way they are.
It's probably easier with the second one.
I joked with Patrick. I was like, did you try, blowing the dust out? Does baby work like game cartridge? And he's like, dude, we've tried everything. He's like, I'm not even joking. So that's where Patrick is right now. So send him your good thoughts. Let's start here with a few tech things you should know.
BlackBerry is suing Facebook for patent infringement over its messaging features in WhatsApp and Instagram. BlackBerry claims it's been trying for years to reach an out-of-court agreement. The company is also suing Nokia over wireless communication tech and settled suits with Qualcomm and Blue Products.
Google unveiled a 72-qubit quantum computer called Bristlecone. Google research scientist Julian Kelly says she believes Bristlecone can achieve quantum supremacy. Quantum supremacy is sort of a benchmark that shows that a quantum computer can solve a problem that a classical computer either can't solve or it would take an impractical amount of time for it to solve.
Is a bristlecone like a pine cone? Is that a real thing?
I think so.
Do we know?
Yeah.
It's a cool name.
I don't know, but sure.
Sure. Well, someone write in. Let us know. Washington State passed a net neutrality law requiring internet providers to treat all lawful content the same, despite the FCC's objections to states passing their own net neutrality regulations. Washington State is officially the first. Several tech companies that make up the Coalition for Internet Openness filed a petition Monday with the Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit against the FCC's decision to end previous net neutrality regulations.
Oh, here we go. This is going to last forever. The general public can now pre-order Microsoft's Surface Pro with LTE Advanced built in. It has both an embedded eSIM, so you could just buy a pass for the day if you want, as well as an external SIM tray. If you're like, no, I have a SIM, I want to put that in. It can support up to a 450 megabit per second connection if your carrier offers it. Otherwise, it's mostly the same as the Surface Pro that came out in 2017. Starts at $1,149. And generally, its models are $150 more than the non-LTE versions. Shipping begins May 1st. Let's talk a little bit more about movies. MoviePass is great, right, Sarah? You can get any movie with MoviePass.
Yeah, and they'll know a lot about you. Okay, so here's the deal. MoviePass CEO Mitch Lowe said at the Entertainment Finance Forum, it's going on in Los Angeles, he was speaking as a keynote speaker yesterday here in LA, that the company watches how its users drive from home, or wherever they're coming from, to the movie theater, and then where they go afterwards, which sounds insane, but MoviePass's privacy policy only mentions location tracking, discloses as a single request when selecting a theater, which will, they say, only be used as a means to develop, improve, and personalize the service. Sounds like two different things are going on. In a statement to TechCrunch, a MoviePass representative said the company won't sell the data that they gather, and they're only using it for potential customer benefits, like, for example, discounts on transportation or coupons for nearby restaurants.
We talked about this on Cord Killers with Brian Brushwood yesterday. But this was before MoviePass had clarified, like, we're not going to use your information for this or that. But their response still leaves me unsettled. Yeah. Because what Mitch Lowe said was, we get an enormous amount of information. We watch how you drive from home to the movies, which is not what their terms of service say they do. So at first I was like, okay, he misspoke. He doesn't mean you actually watch. He just means, hey, we could do this or something like that. He didn't choose his words carefully for being taken out of context. And that's what MoviePass is saying. They're saying it got taken out of context. However, they don't deny in their statement to TechCrunch that they are tracking you from your home to the theater, which again is what their terms of service say they aren't doing. So they need to be very clear on this point. Don't avoid it, because then it makes it sound like, oh, actually we are doing that, but we shouldn't be.
Well, and it's, the whole thing of like, don't worry, we won't sell the data that we gather is like, well, that's not good enough. Most people would like to opt into something like restaurant coupons nearby. On its surface, it's like, okay, if MoviePass wanted to offer me some stuff saying, hey, listen, if you agree to, allow us to location track you, there are some incentives for you if, you want to enhance your cool movie date night. Well, I wouldn't necessarily just say no to that, but I'd like to think about it. And I'd like the terms of service to be very clear.
I still don't think they're doing it, although they might be. I don't think they're doing it on a widespread basis, because what their representative said to TechCrunch was, we are exploring. My guess is they've got some beta code. They've maybe been testing it with a small group of informed users, or maybe with their own staff that are having some opt-in tracking. And that's what Mitch Lowe was saying. Hey, we can do this. He said we are doing it. He meant, we are in the process of exploring, but they still didn't respond to TechCrunch's direct question of, are you doing it now to me? And if so, what are you collecting? When are you collecting it? And where in the terms of service, is this disclosed? They need to be real specific on that point.
Well, and, for a company that's trying, really hard to have as many users as possible, it's very tone deaf. Even if you're not doing anything nefarious, it's just very tone deaf to not know that people will get super freaked out about something like this unless they explicitly know what's happening and opt in.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me it's going to happen. Tell me what my benefit is and give me the chance to say yes or no. Totally fine with that. As I said on Cord Killers, my navigation app tracks me all over the place, but I'm fine with that because it gives me a benefit of getting to where I'm going, right? Mm-hmm. Uber Freight is Uber's cargo shipping app. It's using autonomous trucks to do some of the work in Arizona now. It's carrying people's cargo on autonomous trucks on long-haul segments of a delivery in particular. So it's actually not doing something that they don't already do, except for one segment is autonomous. James Thatcher from Tech and Trade and a patron, so our boss, explains what's going on here.
Hey, thanks, Tom and Sarah. Today, I want to talk about TechCrunch's article with regard to Uber self-driving trucks are now moving cargo for Uber Freight customers. So basically what's going on here is the way most large freight truck companies work, they have terminals across the United States, and you have local pickup and delivery drivers that will go out to a local location, pick up a trailer, take that trailer back to their terminal. Then you'll have an over-the-road driver that picks up that trailer, moves it to another terminal, and then you have another pickup and delivery driver that basically delivers the goods. Now, while this is, a pretty much fundamental thing that happens right now, Uber's not reinventing the wheel. They're basically adding a twist. That over-the-road driver that goes from terminal to terminal, they're experimenting right now with a self-driving truck. Now, there is a driver behind the wheel, but quite honestly, this is not rocket science. This is low-hanging fruit because most terminal-to-terminal traffic is on an interstate, which is a very controlled environment with pretty decent roads, well-lined markings. It's very easy to figure out, and it's in Arizona, so there's really not a whole lot of traffic until you get to Phoenix. So I'm not hugely impressed with this, but it is an interesting step forward. Once Uber starts actually tackling the pickup and delivery, and they start tackling port operations and those types of things automatically, then I'm going to be really, really impressed. But that's just my 2 cents. For more about Tech and Trade, you can find me at The Trade Nerd. That's thetradenerd.com, or follow us on Twitter at Tech and Trade.
Thanks.
Back to you, Tom and Sarah.
Oh, thank you, James. I think after talking to him, this makes me think that what Uber's doing is a thing they have to do to prove themselves to regulators, to clients, et cetera. It isn't meant to be the big advance, right?
Yeah, I would agree. Big Jim called it low-hanging fruit, and it's like, it's the first step. Exactly. And it's true. If it's mostly on interstates, right, it's in many ways well-paved, I don't know, flat at times, it's well-marked and
dry. It doesn't rain a lot in Arizona.
Yeah, and you're not getting a lot of cross-traffic and, pedestrians or that sort of thing. It is the easiest way for, regulators, and particularly ones that are a little spooked by all of this and don't want to go too far too fast, allowing companies to just have a bunch of driverless cars to say, see, look how well it's working.
Because they've done tests that do the exact same thing as this, but they were tests. This is, hey, now we're going to do that same thing with actual cargo on board. And then the next step is now we're going to negotiate into the terminal rather than just through the highways and stopping. I guess they're stopping at a way station to do the transfer to the short haul. But as Big Jim pointed out, it's actually it's not a new system. This is the same system that human drivers use. It's just one segment's now autonomous, which is exciting in a way.
Yeah. Hey, progress, evolution anyway. Okay. Dating app Bumble. Speaking of evolution of dating. So Bumble is one of many apps, dating apps will ban images of firearms on user profiles. So that's, like if I had a picture of myself holding a gun, that will no longer be allowed on Bumble in response to a string of mass shootings and gun control debates that are currently going on in the US. Now, around 5,000 moderators around the world are going to start sifting through new and existing profiles and then remove gun-related content. That was what Bumble founder and CEO Whitney Wolfe Herd said about this news. Bumble won't censor images that appear in users' Instagram feeds, and the reason that would be important is because some of the pictures on Bumble get ported in from Instagram feeds. So they don't have any control over any picture that might come from Instagram. It would be something that you post to Bumble itself. Now, my initial reaction, and I'm familiar with Bumble. We'll just leave it at that. My initial reaction is, well, yeah, I mean, those are the worst ones, the guys like holding guns or, like holding a dead alligator or just like really like aggro stuff. But at the same time, it's an interesting place to say like, hey, there's no need for this because, just because somebody's holding a gun doesn't mean that like they're going to like hurt anybody. And some people are like enthusiasts about things and might have other interests and might fall in love or, whatever you use a dating app for. So I don't know. It's like, I don't have an issue with there being less photos of guns on dating apps personally, but it's also, I don't know. There's more to the conversation, I think, here. And I'm not totally sure where I'm going with it because I have my own ideas of, what a good app profile picture looks like.
I believe me, I'm the last person to talk about a dating app with anybody at this point. But first, I will say Bumble gets to do whatever they want. They're a private company. They can decide. And if you don't like it, go use a different dating app. There's loads of dating apps out there, as far as I understand. Mm-hmm. But I think you're right, Sarah. Having an image of a firearm in a picture doesn't mean anything other than you like firearms. And even if you are the strictest gun control debate, I don't think most of you believe that no one should ever have guns. Hunting is a common pastime in many countries, not just the United States. So I think you bring up a really important point, Sarah, which is you're banning an area of interest on the one hand for people who are like, yeah, I'm really into hunting, or I'm really into just going to the gun range. I'm into firearms and the responsible use for them, or whatever. You also are taking away a signal for someone who's like, I'm really put off by someone who would put a gun image in their profile. And and now I won't know that, right? I'll have to find that out later. That could be a weed out factor for someone too. So I don't think this is a great move on Bumble's point. It seems like a PR move to me.
I think Bumble probably has enough data to say that if you've got a gun in your profile, you're like getting less clicks anyway, fewer clicks, and has decided to make this a political statement.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't have any insider information, but yeah, it seems the same way to me.
That makes sense. The European Network of Transmission System Operators for Electricity. No, you've never heard of them before, most of you. Although if you have, please write in. We definitely want to hear from you. The European Network of Transmission System Operators for Electricity has put out a statement explaining why digital clocks, electric clocks in particular in Europe, are lagging and have lost up to 5 minutes since January. If you're in Europe and your electric clock is 5 minutes behind and you've been wondering why, this is why. Electric clocks rely on a steady 50 hertz from the power grid to count cycles and keep good time. However, a shortage in supply from a Southeastern Europe distributor has led to power deviations across Europe and a subsequent slight drop in frequency, which means that these electric clocks lose some accuracy. Now, if you've got a quartz clock, you're fine. If your clock is set through the internet, which a lot of them are these days, you're fine. But if you've got an electric clock, it's going to lag behind. And if you try to reset it, it's just going to keep losing time until this is fixed. Now, the statement did promise a compensation program to correct the time in the future. So I don't know if that means they're going to speed up the hertz for a little while to get everything back or what, but they're on it.
5 minutes is not insignificant.
Over 2 months, it's a slow burn. And so you might not even notice. And then suddenly you're running 5 minutes.
Well, that's what especially it's like, think of like people who, you get that like 8:05 train, like you get there at 8:10 and now you're screwed and now you're late for work.
I will add that this is actually a problem that I used to have in college, because remember when we had the rolling blackouts in California?
Oh, yeah.
The power supplies were very intermittent. My clock was always off, by 5 minutes.
Well, especially when the power went out.
Well, but it wasn't because of the blackout, directly because of blackout.
Power would go out for an hour, and by a clock it'd be an hour off.
Well, no, but in any case, what I managed to do is I plugged my clock directly into my UPS, one of the battery backup slots.
Oh,
it did,
and that
lose
kept
time
that evened out the cycles.
3 months.
Nice.
So after around 3 months, you would notice it'd be off by a couple of minutes, but it was much better than what it was before.
Interesting workaround there. That's good to know.
I feel like I love the story because I'm just like, time, what is even time? But that's because I'm always late. And so if something like this, if this was the US network of transmission system operators saying like, that's why you're always late, I would use it to my advantage. Unfortunately, I'm in the wrong continent. Google is officially rolling out Lens to Android phones that also have Google Photos installed. Lens allows you to scan things through the app and then get information about those things, like what breed of dog you might have taken a photo of, or a type of plant, or a landmark. Certain phone models from Samsung, Huawei, LG, Motorola, and others will eventually be able to access Lens through the Google Assistant as well. Now, this might sound familiar to you because the company first announced the Lens expansion at Mobile World Congress last week. We still don't have a timeline on when iOS devices will receive Lens, which sucks because that's what I have, and Lens is really cool.
From a personal standpoint, for Sarah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I like this. I haven't got it on my Android phone yet either, so I feel your pain a little bit, but I should be getting it sooner. I do want to say, like, this doesn't point a photo at a breed of dog and tell you the mix. Like, it just says, like, oh, that's a poodle. And so if you have a Labradoodle, I don't know if it gets that specific. Right. In other words, it works some of the time, and it works more impressively than some other recognition stuff. I think the idea of using it to scan in business cards, even as old as that technology is probably one of the greatest uses for it.
Well, I remember when Word Lens came out years ago, and it was where you could translate like a sign in a foreign country where you're like, where am I? And I thought that was absolute magic. But even that didn't work flawlessly. But when it does, it does. And it's hey, getting context on what's the restaurant, that sort of thing. It's like, I love that stuff. It doesn't work perfectly, but the more we have, and particularly the more it's just sort of part of the Android experience for anybody who has Google Photos, we're all just going to get used to it. Bringing up Minority Report life.
Bringing up Word Lens does remind me, though, that I've been to countries, Japan, Korea, where I should have used Word Lens. I had Word Lens installed and I never used it. Mm-hmm. Because it was just easier to use the context, ask someone, than to pull out the phone, hold it up, press Word Lens. I mean, by that time I could have just asked somebody or been like, I don't really know. Like, I was never in a position where I had to know what a sign said so desperately that it was worth all of that for me. So I'm actually curious how many people end up using Lens, especially because it's a tab inside Google Photos. Right. So you have to go in, open Google Photos, then go in a tab. It's one extra step.
Well, I think they bury it in there because they want it to be close to your photos, right? Rather than just like some other app where you're really not going to remember that you have it.
Yeah. All right. Finally, Stephen Zope. I'm going to say Z-O-E.
I said Zof this morning in headline.
Yeah. I listened to that. That's why I'm saying it that way too. Like, yeah, okay, that sounds right. ZOEPF, it could be ZEPF, I guess. But Stephen Zopf, the lead author of a paper out of MIT that estimated the hourly earnings of ride-hailing drivers, has responded to criticism by Uber's chief economist, Jonathan Hall. If you listen to Friday's episode with Brian Brushwood, we talked about this. Zopf acknowledges that the survey questions should have been worded more clearly. The paper estimated the median profit for a driver at $3.37 an hour. The main idea of the paper was, hey, you've got car expenses, you've got insurance, you've got depreciation. So if we take all of that out, how much are these folks making? Originally, the paper estimated $3.37 as a median. Hall from the Uber criticized the method for arriving at earnings, basically pointing out that it appears that the survey they used asks how much you make from driving, then asks what percentage of your income comes from driving, then takes that percentage out of the reported earnings from driving. And he says, well, wait a minute. If you say I make $2,000 from driving, then you say, how much do you make from driving? And you're like, oh, well, driving's about half my time. I also have another job. I make 50% from driving. You can't then say, well, it's $1,000 that he makes from driving. You should go with one or the other. So Zopf is revising his research. His initial assessment is that if you don't make the adjustment that he made, that raises the median to $8.55 an hour, meaning 54% of drivers are under minimum wage, not 74% as originally stated. Using just self-reported hourly income, we'll just let people estimate their own hourly income. What do they think they make? And then take out the expenses. He ends up with $10 an hour. That's 41% under minimum wage. Zopf, in return, has asked Hall to provide better access to Uber's data so that they can do independent analysis and avoid these kinds of errors.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that so many Uber drivers, no matter how you slice it, at least with the examples that we were given, that still, a lot of people are not making as much money as at least I would have thought. And a lot of Uber drivers also don't sound like they understand how much all of the other, sort of not hidden costs, but costs that you might not think of up front would be affecting their bottom line. The survey also sounds like doing my taxes. It doesn't sound fun at all. But I think that he makes a really good point of saying, okay, some of my questions were unclear and I see why Uber, and of course Uber has an incentive to point these things out because they want drivers to think that they make lots of money,
Sure.
So they keep, they keep their scale and their growth going. But if Uber's going to take issue with this, well, you can't just, have your own survey because you're Uber. Independent analysis is really important in order to prove that you're a company that's viable. So, yeah, I guess, what do you do? Take another survey?
Yeah, I think you do what Zopf did is like, all right, let's recalculate. Let's take your fair criticisms into account and see what we've got. And Uber and Lyft have both looked at this and said, this doesn't match up with the numbers we have. Of course, ride-hailing companies are going to want to say it doesn't match up, but Jonathan Hall at Uber is an economist. So at least it's not Uber's marketing director saying this. It's an actual economist pointing it out and pointing it out to the sufficient satisfaction of Zopf to say, all right, you're right. You're pointing out something that is worthwhile re-examining. Let's re-examine it. But I like that he came back and said, what would help is we have more data. More data to work from means more accuracy. So I would like to see Uber answer that. This could be a very productive exchange where instead of getting in a war of words, two people are like, oh, let's argue to learn. That's a really good point. Let me re-estimate. Hey, if you could give me more data, I could actually make this more accurate. I think that's fair.
It also kind of tells you something that a company that employs someone that's a chief economist is still trying to work out some numbers. Figure out what it all means, as we move forward as well.
Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day, do what I did this morning. Listen to Sarah Lane. Bring you it in 5 minutes. Daily Tech Headlines. It's there on your Amazon Echo as a flash briefing. You can get it on Google Home, in the Anchor app, and of course, as our podcast. Remember what those are? Podcasts? Get them in a podcast app. DailyTechHeadlines.com.
I was really proud of myself. It was exactly 5 minutes today. Exactly to
on the nose. Yeah. Not messing around there, Sarah Lane.
Anyone else who noticed that would just high five each other. These are the things that make my morning.
Excellent. All right. Well, the other thing that makes my morning is getting mail from folks. I want to not apologize, but we used to read most of the mail we got we're getting way too much mail these days, which is awesome. We'll try to respond to it as often as we can, but do know we read it. What are we pulling out of the mailbag to talk about today?
We are pulling out an email from Vince, who is responding to our conversation yesterday about Apple maybe making it higher end over-the-ear headphones and how that would compete with Beats that's already part of the Apple brand. Anyway, Vince says, bought a pair of Beats over-the-ear headphones this week. Picked the W1 chip even more than the brand itself. I can give you 3 ideas of why Apple could want to change on the headphones after a few days use of his new headphones. Number 1, to use USB-C or Lightning instead of micro USB. Number 2, competitors have apps that let you adjust settings in the headphones like Bose Connect. AirPods can be configured on the phone as part of iOS. Beats only have an app for the pill. Okay. And number 3, having touch interface like airports instead of the current physical buttons.
Okay. Those are all definite improvements they could make to Beats. It still doesn't answer my question of like, so why do you just make headphones that say Beats that do all of those things? Or you know what I mean? Like, I guess maybe I hadn't considered this sufficiently. Vince might be pointing out this could be a brand shift where Apple's like, yeah, we kept Beats going, right? Didn't want to blow the lead they had, but let's come out with a new pair of headphones that are Apple branded and then get people to go, ooh, those are nice. They do these things that Vince wanted done. And you kind of shift that Beats user group over to the Apple headphones. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I still think that, they're just going to phase out the Beats brand. It's, that whole partnership seems long in the tooth anyway. Yeah, it was interesting that they kept the Beats brand. I think a lot of people expected them to just change it to Apple right from the beginning.
Exactly.
But I think it was smart of them because there are a lot of folks who were fans of Beats that weren't fans of Apple. And I don't mean they hated Apple. They're just like, I don't know Apple. I know Beats. I go to the Best Buy or the electronics store and I buy Beats headphones because Beats headphones are good. And I like Dr. Dre and I like Beats. And so they wanted to get those people used to the idea that, hey, Beats are from Apple. You can go to the Apple store and get Beats. And maybe when you're in the Apple store, you'll see some other Apple things and maybe you'll become an Apple fan. They've been doing that for enough years now. They probably could shift away from that. Or why not just call them Apple Beats? Like, wouldn't that be a perfectly normal Apple name? You've got Apple TV, like Apple Beats.
Well, but then there's iTunes and I don't know.
Change to iTunes, please.
Please. I'm begging you. If Apple could do anything to just make my life better, call it something else.
Yeah.
Please.
And also slim it down even more. I know you've been working on it.
Oh God. Half the time I'm looking for something in my library, but it's really the store and iTunes is like, never heard of it. And it's just like, it makes me crazy, but, that's a story for another day. Hey, thanks to those who participate in our subreddit. In fact, I used a lot of your stories this morning on headlines. So thanks. We love knowing what stories resonate with you. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. We also have a Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow.
Big thanks to our patrons who keep us going. You are the reason we exist. On the base model, this is value for value. If you enjoy the show, if you're listening to the show, and you can afford $1 a month, $12 a year, we ask you, give that value back. If you think the show's worth more than $1 and you can spare it, we've got reasons to help you make that decision as well at patreon.com/DTNS. We also have the Daily Tech News store. I was drinking out of my DTNS mug just now, a little coffee before the show, and you could be doing that too. We have mugs and hoodies and all kinds of good stuff at dailytechnewsshow.com/store. Final announcement is that I will be at the live Night Attack hosted by Brian Brushwood and Justin Robert Young in Austin, Texas, this coming Saturday, March 10th from 2 to 4 p.m. at Kung Fu Saloon. So if you're in Austin, you don't have to be going to South by Southwest. Maybe you're in town for South by Southwest. Maybe you live there. But come by the Kung Fu Saloon, 2 to 4 p.m. It's free if you're 18 or older. If you're not 18, they won't let you in. It's an 18 or older thing, but it's free. And you have to be 18 years or older. But please do come on by. We'll have a link to the details in the show notes.
Excellent. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 21:30 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
That 21:30 UTC is going to change next Monday. because we got daylight
Gosh,
saving.
now we're back to 2030, and I just got used to this.
I know. I'm traveling to Austin, so I won't be here tomorrow, but Sarah Roger will be here with Scott Johnson. They'll talk to you then. Woo-hoo.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
So it's 21:30 now. We're going
Then it goes back to 2030. It's not 22:30.
We're going to spring forward.
It's just look at an old rundown.
So 1:30 will be 2:30. But then 1:30 is what is now 12. Yeah, okay. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. I know you're right because I remember the old time. But
I mean, I don't, UTC is like, Google Lens. How do they do it?
UTC is always the same.
I know.
It's always the same time. We should just all be on UTC.
Yeah. That's why it's so great.
If it was 2200 right now, and it was always 2200 right now, we wouldn't be moving in time, I guess.
No,
but I mean, if at this point in the day it was always 2200, we'd all know it, and that would be great.
I think it's because UTC times sound like military time to me, and so I convert, and then that's not what it is.
Right, because they're expressed in military time.
It's what I don't know.
Yeah, it's a 20.
I'm just happy daylight savings is coming back, man. We get some late sunsets, long walks on the beach at 8 p.m., not in the dark. Into it.
No, you could have those anyway. It doesn't matter what time you call it.
Yes, it does.
Well, it depends. It depends on the time of season as well.
I'm just saying, you can go out. It's the same time. It's just you call it something different with daylight saving time.
Well, okay. So we'll just do the show when we want. And it'll just be the same time.
It's just a relabeling.
I understand.
It's a rebranding of 1 o'clock to 12 o'clock. And then back again.
There is no complaint from me about daylight saving
time. Oh, I hate daylight saving time. I don't want to have to change. Just let me have I'm fine if we keep it where it is for daylight saving time all year round. Fine with that.
You just don't want to. Yeah.
And I don't want to have to change twice a year.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, it's insult to injury too, because those of us who get a little sort of like meh when it gets dark so early, it's like it's a seasonal thing. It happens to people, particularly in colder places. Yeah. It's like if it was just daylight savings, like yes, the days are still going to get shorter because it's turning into winter, right? But just less of that.
It's the psychological thing of changing the time so suddenly it feels like it's staying light later because we rebranded 4 o'clock to be 5 o'clock.
And the reason it's getting light later is because we all still, nobody's job just says like, okay, now that we've changed everything, you also come in an hour later. It's like you have to do the same things, and now it feels different.
Yeah.
A Wrinkle in Time.
Oh, I think that's your head.
I always feel like Movie Pass is watching me.
Oh, A Wrinkle in Time refers to the electric clock thing. Okay, yes. I get it. And also, Roger is now reading potential titles.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we just skipped.
He's not just stating a movie he would like to see that's coming out soon.
A Wrinkle. Oh, I always feel like Movie Pass is watching me. I think that's funny.
That's funny.
I always feel like
Movie Pass.
Through a Lens Googly. That's pretty fun.
Oh yeah, because of Lens. I get it. All right.
There are quite a few Movie Pass ones that I like. Watch movies. We'll watch you.
That's good too.
Apple headphones beats me. I think that should be
too violent.
What about Bumble bans broomsticks?
Boom. I get it. Okay.
Yeah, that's what it's a.
Do people call guns broomsticks?
No, boom.
It's a
boomstick.
Boomsticks. I see. Got it.
I think it's a reference to Evil Dead.
Yeah, it's definitely called the boomstick. I don't know if Evil Dead originated.
Yeah, I would not. Yeah, that's not a thing I would know. I would have read that because I wouldn't have understood Bumble bans broomsticks. And then I would have been like, this is a show I got to listen to. And then I would have been like, it's not even about broomsticks.
They haven't mentioned broomsticks once.
Not even once.
Do you guys have a favorite? Because I'm leaning toward, I always feel like Movie Pass is watching me.
I like watch movies. We'll watch you.
Me too.
All right.
Sorry,
outvoted.
I tend to go for the shorter ones.
Yeah, me too. I think because I always feel like Movie Pass is watching me also, but it's a little longish.
Right.
So, yeah. I did that. Did I do that?
Did I do that? Hi, sweetheart. Do you want to come?
What was the name of the show
Full
that
House.
Urkel was on?
Oh, Family Matters.
I always forget that.
Yeah. That's another one of those. In the pre-show, we were talking about references to movies that you might be like, oh, that's where that reference comes from. That's kind of part of our, I don't know, pop cultural vernacular. That's a show I never watched, but I know that it was Steve Urkel who said that.
Yeah. No, I may have watched 2 episodes maybe.
Yeah.
Back when it was on, but
they had, then there was the one Step by Step that followed it, which had Patrick Duffy and Suzanne Summers.
For sure didn't watch that. But I do remember the first time I heard, "You go, girl." And I didn't know that it was from the show Martin. That's where it got popular. I mean, I'm sure somebody else said that first, but I was like, go where? What?
Martin.
Yeah. And then I, later on I was like, oh, got it.
I watched more episodes of Martin than I did Family Matters.
Was it UPN or UPN or WB?
No, I don't know. I didn't watch a lot of Martin.
I think because I associate the Martin promos with Star Trek, and Star Trek was on UPN.
Well, I do remember I was in high school, so I wouldn't have gotten cable. I probably didn't have access to Martin. Well, no, I would have with the antenna. I would have been able to get the WB because it was like on channel 13. I don't know. Or channel 20. KOFY. That's what they did. That's what it was. Yeah.
I think UPN was channel 13 in Austin. That's what I used to watch.
Oh, yeah. Well, UPN wasn't even UPN back in the day. It was something else. At least for us. I don't know.
Yeah, St. Louis, channel 11 and channel 30 were just independent. And then 30 became Fox. And 11, I think, became both the WB and UPN somehow. I don't know how they worked that. And then 2 became Fox and 30 became ABC. They swapped.
Coffee, TV20, which Roger, you might remember this, but they had this, they had these little call outs where it would be a dog.
Oh, my wife loves those. She used to watch those all the time when she moved out.
It would be a dog, kind of like, they're just sort of like, I don't know, like on a green screen or whatever, just sort of, and it would say like, halfway, TV20, stereo. And then like somebody off camera would do something and the dog would look at the camera.
It was the cutest thing.
It's so cute. And, it'd be like, and then there would like be like, Barry the dog from Fremont, down at the bottom. And it was a big deal for somebody to get their dog featured.
The WB and UPN merged to become the CW.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of. I knew there was like a new network that, was like popular, but didn't exist before, the CW, which is where all the teen stuff happened, right?
Yeah. And that's where all the superhero shows are, like Arrow and Supergirl.
Like Dawson's Creek, right?
Wasn't that
Creek. The CW? Yeah.
Dawson's Creek, I think, started on UPN or WB and then carried on when it became the CW. Like it made the transition.
Got it. So much stuff to remember. I got to look up those dog videos. I know they're on YouTube somewhere. TV20. Okay, how do I even KOFY TV20 dogs?
See, 20 was the NBC affiliate in Springfield.
Oh, the dog bumper. Here we go.
We couldn't get if there was a storm. So we'd always watch Channel 5 out of St.
Not even a quiet storm, just a storm.
No, we always watch Channel 5 out of St. Louis because that came in fine. But we
Did
could
you get
also
multiple,
get Channel 20.
So you got multiple affiliates.
Oh my gosh, you guys have to watch this. It's so funny.
Which one? The TV20?
Yeah, I'll send it in Slack. Then you can whoever has,
Roger has the ability to.
There you go.
Display it.
Let me see.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was like the dog there'd be a TV next to the dog, and then they'd do something so that the dog looks at the TV, and it makes it seem like the TV was very interesting to the dog.
And my wife can't get enough of this. I'm moved by pets. Like
you are unmoved.
The only thing that moves me. And lunch.
If you see if you
my pets are moved by lunch.
Yeah.
Wait, you have to hear the audio, or it's no good.
Well, I can't. Oh, can I share audio? I don't know. Can.
Oh, really? Well,
I can. It's a screen share. It's meant to show.
Screw you, Hangouts.
Sorry.
Well, you're always able to play the audio when you don't want out of your Chrome browser.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Hold on, I forgot.
You always have those autoplay commercials come up.
Hold on.
That's happened to me once or twice too. Oh, Hilda.
TV 20. Stereo. Coffee. TV 20, San Francisco.
Was that a Dave Matthews Top of the Hill? Oh no, that was what's his name?
So good.
It used to be
God, it's like half the time our post show is just like a nostalgia walk.
Yeah.
I don't know why we always take it there.
Because we're old and that's
because we're old and that's all we've got.
Do you remember? This is why I want to live in a community when I'm old.
This is where we got our first bicycle. My first real 10-speed was from an electronics store on the top of the hill, Daly City.
Oh, I didn't know what you meant. I was like, bottom of the hill?
Top of the hill looks like Tipton in St. Louis. Tipton's Moonlight Madness sale.
And the whole thing was you bought like a TV or stereo. They would give you a Ferenz 15-speed bicycle worth $200 free. And so I said I wanted a bike. And my dad decided we now needed a color TV now that they've been around for 12 years. And said, okay. Two birds.
You don't usually say stereo.
What?
Stereo.
Is that? I'm just wondering if that's how you said it.
Why are you making fun of me, Tom?
Not making fun. Hold on, just hear me out. I'm wondering if that's the way you said it as a kid, and then seeing the commercial
he's
brought
concerned.
It back.
How did you just say stereo?
I'm trying. It's an accent, and I'm wondering if it's an old accent of Rogers that was brought out by the old commercial.
Well, it's possible.
Stereo.
Hysteria. Wisteria.
Def Leppard's Wisteria.
Wisteria is
not to be confused with Listeria.
No, very different. Wisteria, the purple kind of grape-looking flower, that grows sort of like a vine. It's one of the most beautiful flowers ever, but it has such a short bloom life.
Mm.
I don't know. Anyway, in California, people, they grow it around their, houses. And so sometimes for 3 weeks a year, you're like, oh, it's the most beautiful house I've ever seen. And then it's you've got this plant that doesn't work the rest of the year.
Yeah. Well, it also just covers your yard when it sheds, when it's done too.
Yeah. Very pretty though.
Mm.
Very pretty. And there's it's not wisteria, but there is a similar tree in LA where it's just for a couple weeks a year, all the trees are purple on certain streets. And you're like, wow, it's so pretty. I don't remember the name of my mom would know. Mom, can you text me if you're listening?
She will too if she's listening.
Purple flowers in LA. Jacaranda trees.
Jacaranda.
Yeah. They bloom in the spring. Oh my God, she just texted me. Mom, I beat you. By 5 seconds. Jacaranda.
Nothing's gonna change.
Get your jacaranda out of my yard.
No, they're so pretty though. And they really come out of nowhere. I don't know. I don't live on a street with jacaranda trees, but they were planted in certain areas of LA where you'll just turn down a block and you're like, whoa, it's super purple. Yeah, but the petals are everywhere and it's a nightmare for any car that's under them.
We came really close to becoming a poetry slam right then. I don't live on a street with jacaranda trees, but.
No, that was our slam. I hope you guys liked it.
Welcome to the DTNS Poetry Slam.
Right.
A regular feature of our post
We
show.
told you we were going to experiment on labs.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know, I've often thought about doing something really gimmicky, like having, you know, not that we would do this for Daily Tech headlines because it's wonderful the way it is, but like figuring out a way to like tell the same story but make it rhyme, or bury some sort of a reference in each story that like you'd have to kind of pay attention to, and people could try to like, you know, be the first person to tweet to, you know, if they knew it. That stuff, none of it seems like a very good idea to me, but it's like
perfect stuff for labs though. Like the rhyming thing would be like, okay, we just took yesterday's headlines and we did it rhyming style, you know, enjoy, right? You just do it once. I don't think it probably catches on, but why not? You know, just try it. The burying we could just do that on an episode and not tell anyone and see if anyone notices.
Yeah. Well, I used to do that sometimes when I did Crunch Report because it was, you know, a daily show, which was just, you know, it was this show is great because we're all collaborating. It's also fine to do it yourself, but sometimes you feel like you're like very alone. And so I would sometimes like make little references and just be like, if anyone notices this, I will feel less alone. You know, and I'd have like some person on Twitter be like, did you just reference like Tupac in that story? It's like, yes, you finally, like, someone understands me. Someone's listening. But yeah, I don't know. If anybody has a great idea, let us know. Oh, and also Tom had mentioned that we're getting a lot more mail, and which is great. And then he also reminded me yesterday that now that we're past the end of February, we need to do another mailbag show.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason that like it suck to get all this mail that we can't reply to on Daily Tech News Show, because the spillover show, which is not a very nice way to say it, but kind of what it is. What do we do with all these great emails? I'd love your feedback on who you'd like to see maybe join me on a mailbag episode. Not necessarily the next one, because I'm still trying to, you know, I was sitting over there during our segment and I'm still kind of trying to figure out a lot of this stuff. But
I want you to Laura Linka Glatter them. Laura Linka Glatter's episodes of Twin Peaks always use this movie trick where you'll focus on one or two people and then suddenly in the course of the conversation reveal there's a third person there. Like, I want you to start mailbag and it's just you, and then suddenly you reveal the other person.
Okay. I mean, that's what you want. I'll
like,
do it.
Sure, Tom. We'll have big.
Welcome to
dreams.
Mailbag. I'm Sarah Lane, sitting here solo. Let's get into our first, you know, and then all of a sudden,
I guess you need
like
3 people to make that work. You need to, yeah, you're right. Okay.
And on that note, any last words for our YouTube audience?
Don't shoot.
Okay.
And if you do, Bumble